This shows my core trench back when I rebuilt the dam in April 2025. This is mid-May. You can see how far the water is up on the shallow end. This is June 1st. You can see how much the water has pulled back from the low end of the beach. This is July 10th after a significant rain. You can see the water level is about 6 inches below the bottom of the overflow pipe. This is 8 days later on July 18th. You can see the now 16 inches below the bottom of the overflow pipe. This is almost a month later on August 12th. It's nice to see how the pond will look when it's full. This is 2 days later on August 14th. You can see how much the water has dropped. This is August 22nd, 10 days after the large rain. 3 days later, that brings us to the present point in this video. Today's project is I'm going to pump out the pond so we can start working on that to put a test plastic liner in it. First step is to get a hose. So when I pump it out, I want to pump it into my little retention pond. This is the hose that I use to pump the water out of the pool when I siphon the dirt off the bottom to my compost pile. So we're just going to borrow this for a little bit. This will be where we're going to pump the water to, and that's where we're going to take it out of. I was going to pump it using this plastic white pipe into my overflow tube. We decided to pump it into the retention basin instead. Since we have deer that drink out of this every night, maybe they'll temporarily use that other one. First step is take the white hose off. This fitting that's on there now is for a garden hose. Get the other end into the retention pond. Eventually I'll get this bucket out in the deeper end, but for now we'll see if we can get it started here and make sure everything's going to work in the shallow end. We'll get an extension cord and also a long pole so I can try to work that bucket out a little farther. Okay, I have this extension cord plugged into one of my Wi-Fi outlets, so we'll be able to turn it off and on with the phone. So I'm going to plug the pump in now and then see if I can move it out a little farther, and then we'll fire it up, see if it works. Okay, now we'll see if we can get this out a little farther without falling in. Okay, so you can see most of the sump pump is underwater. This is just a regular sump pump you'd like buy for your basement. And it did have a float valve on to turn it off and on, but that quit working. So I cut it off and bypassed it, so now it's just on all the time. Okay, I just turned the pump on, see if the water comes out. Seem to remember a little faster flow rate last time I used this, so Don't know whether I let it go or try to take it apart and look at it, see if something's plugged up. Guess we'll let this go for a while. I'm not in the mood to take things apart. I'd rather just wait longer. So we'll see pretty much what an hour or two does to the pond level. I got time lapse set on the pond camera, so we'll see how quick that drains. I may decide to revisit this later. Here's a different view of the pond. I want to put the retaining wall up against those two trees to try to separate the pond from the roots and then backfill against it. Trying not to kill these trees, but I don't know how successful I'll be. So as part of my pond project, I would like to put some plastic in here as a test case to see if a liner will help keep the water in longer. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to take that piece of aluminum sheeting and I want to build a mini wall right in here and then pack dirt behind it, because I don't want to ruin the roots of those trees anymore and have the tree root poke a hole in the plastic. So we're going to put some kind of a little wall there. I want to mark out a spot where I'm going to put that sheet of metal. I want to dig out a slot to put that sheet of metal in. I hate putting all this dirt on my new grass, but once the wall is in place, I plan to backfill it. So hopefully it won't kill the grass too much. It's hard to tell in this video, but it's so steep I actually had to dig a little slot for me to stand on. In this view, you can actually see the slot that I had to dig to stand on. The dirt kept sticking to my shovel, so I had to use a putty knife to keep cleaning it off. This gives you another view of the platform that I dug to stand on. The ridge where I have my left foot is not wide enough to stand, so I had to put one foot on the little platform I dug, and then the left foot is up on the ridge. This was quite the endeavor just getting out of this pit. Five days later, I'm back at it. I thought I'd give the post hole digger a try. It worked pretty well, except it was so far down that it was kind of hard to go that far and then lift it all the way up to the top and get the caked mud out. Back to the shovel. Thought I'd try the post hole digger again on this side. After measuring the depth of the cut, I came back up here to mark how much of this sheet that I want to cut off. I had a couple different options to cut this. I decided just to use the saber saw. I needed a way to file down the rough edges of this metal, as I'm going to be draping plastic over it and I don't want it to cut the plastic. So I have a disc sanding tab that I put in a drill motor. So I'm using that without the drill motor here. I went back and got the drill motor, and that worked pretty good. Now we need to measure the fit to see how much more digging we need to do, or some more cutting of the metal. I was having trouble getting the metal down into the slot that I cut, so I used a stick to try to help in that regards. I'm trying to get the metal sheet to go all the way down to where the arrow's pointed, but it's not quite making it, so I'm going to have to dig out more from both ends. Time to take another measurement. As you can see here, the gap is a little less now, so I'm going to put this stick in there to try to hold it in place. We're going to cut a few inches off the top of this so it's not quite as high. I'm going to sand the edge here so I don't have any sharp edges. Time to put a fresh battery in and charge the discharged one. I've got some rebar that I'm going to put on the pond side to keep the sheet from falling into the pond. Now it's time to backfill behind the wall. I don't have any video of it, but when we finished for the day, I put plastic over this because it was supposed to rain that night. Well, we dodged the rain last night, so I'm going to take this plastic off and continue on. So you can see where the dirt is pushing the aluminum panel out, which I should have known that, but I guess I'll have to undo it and come up with a better system, because it's come out, you know, I'm only halfway up this here. And it's already out 15 inches, so by the time it gets to the top, it'll be about 15 inches. So I'm going to take all this apart, and I'm going to run some 1/8-inch wire cable back to some anchor points and see if I can hold the top in closer to this. The reason I'm using this is right here is a good root bank. I don't want to destroy that root any more than I already have. So we're going to stop right here. Try the post hole digger behind the wall. Back to the shovel. I didn't get all the dirt out, but hopefully we got enough of it that we can get the rest once I remove the wall. Well, the good thing is it looks like I got enough dirt out before I removed the panel that the dirt didn't fall back into the pond. As you saw previously, when I tried to backfill behind my aluminum panel, it pushed the top out a good foot and a half. So I'm going to try to run some guy wires to hold the rebar in and not let the panel move out. So I picked up some 1/8 wire cable, some turnbuckles. I want to take this green stake, cut it in half, plus the other two will give me 4 anchor points for the guy wire. So we'll start looking at that now, see where we are. These stakes will be pounded into the ground, then I'll run the 1/8-inch wire cable from those stakes over to the rebar. I'm laying out the rebar so I can mark where to drill the holes. The holes, the 1/8 wire will go through the holes and then back to the stakes that are pounded into the ground. So I got 2 different depths here depending on where these are going. So we'll go drill holes in these and come back out and see where we are. And drill some holes in the rebar. My hammer's down to the pond, so we'll use this hatchet and a punch to set the holes before drilling. Little oil never hurts. Moving up to a bigger drill bit. Let me go get the cable so I can make sure I don't have the hole too small. It's supposed to be 1/8" cable. So now I want to mock this up and visualize it before I finish it out. After getting the 4 rebars set, I want to pound in my first stake. Now we'll finish pounding in the rebar and the stakes, making sure the hole in the rebar is at ground level. Get some of the loose dirt out of here before we put the panel in. Working on the cables. I want to get as much of this hardware set up as possible before I put the wall in. Once the wall's there, it's kind of hard to reach over and get to all this stuff. I started out using the tin snips to try to cut this cable, but after a while I discovered that the Dremel tool with a cutoff wheel worked much better. A little bit of last minute cleanup of all the loose debris in the slot where I'm going to put the sheet metal. If you're wondering about the plastic Gatorade bottles on the rebar, that's more of a safety thing in case I slip and fall against one of them. I don't want to impale myself. This really would have gone better with 2 people, seeing how flimsy it is, but I finally got it in. This is the next morning. Of course, we got rain overnight, so it's nice and slippery and muddy. I thought I would try to take this doormat and put it up on the mud to try to keep some of the mud off my tools as I try to work on these guy wires. You can see the sheet metal is still a little higher than I want it, so I'm going to cut some more off the top before I anchor it in there. I thought I had broken my blade, but it turns out it just fell out of the drill. So now I'm trying to find it on the ground here. The battery for the drill fell out. Of course, it fell into the mud. Now it's all dirty. Of course, all the cleaning that I tried, I couldn't get it to click back into the drill. It's hard to see in this picture, but I did get some electrical tape and tape it back onto the drill. With the help of my improvised walking stick, I was able to walk back down the slippery mud into the pond. Some final adjustment to the height of the rebar. Drilling a hole in the sheet metal to run the cable through. I ran the cable through the hole in the rebar and then the two ends through the sheet metal. Now I need to attach these two ends to the post. I'm using a wire clamp to connect the two ends of the cable together so I have one continuous loop. I'm connecting the wire loop through the rebar to the second wire loop through my stake with a turnbuckle, and I can use that to tighten up the guy wire. This is just to hold all the pieces together. Later on I'll come back and adjust both the wire clamps and the turnbuckle. This is where a second pair of hands would have helped out, but it would be almost impossible to try to fit another person either on top or down into the pond with all this slippery mud. This is what it looks like from a different angle. After a while, I learned that it worked best if you tape the wire first and then cut it with the Dremel tool. You would have it on both ends. Here I'm actually pushing on the sheet metal and the rebar with my body to hold it while I hook up the turnbuckle onto the stake. This video is getting kind of long, so I think I'm going to end it here. I hope you enjoyed it. In the next video I will be putting in the plastic liner. Again, thanks for watching. I would love to hear any comments. Please place them in the YouTube comment section.